Hi everyone, my name is Alex LaForestier and I'll be presenting on NHL playoff data. The problem that I'm trying to solve is a lot of teams in the NHL have really good regular seasons year after year and don't find any success in the playoffs. My favorite team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, is historically one of these teams. They have good regular seasons and then fizzle out almost immediately in the playoffs year after year. So I'm trying to look at why this is and find the similar traits that successful playoff teams have over the course of the modern era of the NHL, which began in 1992. The criteria that I created in the data set that I found was that successful playoff teams had to have played at least 10 games, which shows that they've sustained the success over an extended period of time and are not just catching lightning in a bottle in the first round and then fizzling out in the second round, and have a plus minus of greater than 10 goals. So they're outscoring their opponents by at least 10 goals over the course of their playoff run. The first step of my research was identifying these teams. I found 62 teams from the playoffs of 2023, so that was last year, all the way back to 1992. I couldn't include this year's playoffs because they were still going on as I was doing my research, but they have now just concluded. And the second part of my research was calculating the common factors that the teams that I've identified share, and report these findings to an NHL franchise like the Maple Leafs, who are looking to build their roster and coaching room that will have a better impact on playoff success versus regular season success. So this is the data set that I based my research around. You'll notice that some of the variables are highlighted in red and some are in black. The variables highlighted in red are those that I added to the data set that was already in existence. So I had to research those online with all of the teams that are listed to the left in red. And you will also notice that the first column in red, the high danger shots created, only goes till 2009. This stat was not in existence before then, so that was the first year it was tracked. But I did calculate that up until 2009 because I think it is an important stat in judging offensive efficiency. These are the variables I studied in my research: high danger chances per game, goal saved above expected, with that same goal saved above expected on a per game. Coaching tenure, so how long the coach had been a head coach for the team in the playoffs. Average player age, goals scored per game, goals against per game, and win percentage in both the regular season and postseason. The key findings of my research, interestingly, the ideal age for an NHL rostered average is exactly 28 years old. It's not as surprising when you think about it. 28 is sort of the prime of an NHLer's career. They have some experience in the league, as most NHLers come into the league in their early 20s. A few come in when they're 18 or 19, but usually it's 20 or 21 they're breaking into the league. But they haven't hit 30 yet, and which is typically when an NHL's body starts declining a little bit. So 28 seems to be the sweet spot in terms of player performance. I found that the average coaching tenure was nearly a decade at 9.4 years. This suggests that teams might want to hang on to coaches a little bit longer than they typically do, as the NHL coaching carousel is always churning out new coaches. Coaches get fired very frequently, but my research suggests that sticking it out with a coach could pay benefits in the long run. An example of that, although they're not in my research because this just happened a couple days ago, but the Florida Panthers just won the Stanley Cup, and Paul Maurice, their head coach, has been head coach for multiple decades without ever getting a Stanley Cup until now. And I consider him to be one of the best coaches in the NHL, but these things just take time, and experience does matter. Another key finding is that successful teams in the playoffs wind up outperforming their own winning percentage in the regular season, which does indicate that some teams are built better for the playoffs when the game gets tighter, when it gets faster, when it gets more physical. So this does suggest that some teams just are built better for the playoffs than the regular season. The biggest surprise I found was that goaltending, although it's commonly said, you get a hot goaltender in the playoffs and they can carry you to win a Stanley Cup. That may be true, but it's not as important as everybody's making it out to be. That 0.245 goals saved above expected, that's on a per game basis throughout the playoffs for these successful teams, which suggests that the best teams in the playoffs are just getting slightly above average goaltending. You don't need a goalie who's stealing you games, but you can't have a goalie that's losing you games. So in other words, a goalie is saving, just over 1/5 of a goal above what he's expected to save over the course of a game, over the course of a playoff run, which really isn't a lot. So they basically are making um, they're basically able to save one goal above expected per playoff series, or a little over that over the course of their playoff runs. So they're just stealing you a goal, like one goal every series. So you can't have a goalie dragging you down, but it's not as important as everybody makes it out to be. My recommendations: target players in the 27 to 29 age range. This is pretty simple. You want to have players in their prime. You want them to have experience. You want them to be smart, but you also want them to be at their physical best. And as they get older, that tends to decline. Again, I already said this, but don't give up on coaches too early. Experience really does matter when it comes to coaches, just like it does to players. Um, you want coaches who have seen it all and know how to react in every single situation. Again, prioritize above average goaltending, but not superstar goaltending. Sergei Bobrovsky was the goalie of the Panthers this year. He's paid a lot of money, but that's a bit of an outlier. Just last year, the Vegas Golden Knights used 3 different goaltenders, all of which played above average, but none of whom were superstars, and they weren't paid like superstars. Finding a slightly above average goalie and then spending your money to surround that goalie with great defense and scoring is probably the best way to go. And to further that point, goals have been going up since the year 2000. So increasing the emphasis on scoring will serve you well, as goaltending and defense have declined a little bit in recent years as scoring has gone up. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah, thanks.